Introduction. Kings Island. If you drove out of Cincinnati on Interstate 71 and went north for about 20 miles, you'd see the Eiffel Tower, actually a one-third scale model that stood at the entrance to the Kings Island amusement park. Rural Ohio was years ahead of Las Vegas in the art of erecting cheesy replicas of iconic architecture for the vacation trade. In 1975, when I was living back in Cincinnati after dropping out of Grinnell College, Kings Island was a fairly new park, open for only 3 years. It gleamed in its brown and olive-green 70s splendor, and it was vast, filling hundreds of acres of paved-over cornfields with roller coasters, kiddie rides, souvenir shops, snack stands, and more souvenir shops. At the center of the main grounds, not far from the Eiffel Tower, stood an inflatable dome theater that seated a couple of hundred people on benches. In '72, the Partridge Family shot an episode there. That's how perfectly the place exuded middle American wholesomeness. The following year, the Brady Bunch came and filmed a show. The year after that, I was playing there. Kings Island, like most major amusement parks in those days, put together a short musical review every summer. The idea was a throwback to the tent shows that early in American musical history traveled the country bringing entertainment to people living on farms, such as the ones Kings Island had replaced. I remember reading once that Lester Young, the tenor saxophonist who became known for his radically beautiful lyrical improvisations, had started out as a child musician in a family band that worked the tent show circuit. But that fact had nothing to do with my decision to take a job as the pianist in the orchestra pit of the Kings Island Review that summer. I did it for the work. It was a well-paying gig, a professional job when I was just beginning to see what it was like to be a professional musician. I got $500 a week, as I recall, for playing 7 30-minute shows per day, 1 every hour on the hour, 6 days a week. The show was called Hitland USA! The exclamation point was part of the title, as in Oklahoma, and exclamatory exuberance was the mode of the singing in the production. It was a review of mainstream pop hits, skewed somewhat toward the older crowd of parents and grandparents who came to these shows to sit for half an hour while the kids were flipping upside down on the rides. We did things like Up, Up and Away, the Jimmy Webb tune, and I Don't Know How to Love Him from Jesus Christ Superstar. Not my favorite music, but not the absolute worst shit ever written either. There were 2 groups of performers in this show: the singers and the musicians in the pit. The singers were either gay boys right out of the local conservatory or straight girls with dreams of going to Broadway and starring as Marian the Librarian. They were all terrifically talented in the musical theater way. They were young and full of fire and hope, and so was I. The musicians were all older, more seasoned, and jaded. These guys, and they all were guys, were solid working pros or local high school music teachers from the Cincinnati jazz scene. They were making a buck, but they all really loved jazz. Many of them thought of themselves as jazz musicians, and so did I. I was 19 years old.